last session, we talked about personal boundaries and how to create them. And then we gave you an assignment and asked you to set some boundaries around things in your life that you were tolerating. And for most of you, this was a very hard assignment. And part of that is because potentially you have not bought in to your own personal Bill of Rights. And in order to set boundaries well, to deal with conflict effectively, and to increase your emotional intelligence, you need to have a personal Bill of Rights because of your humanity. And so, over the next couple of sessions, we want to share with you 20 statements that my mom has written, and she's borrowed them from many different sources, that encompass a personal Bill of Rights in regards to your humanity. So I'd love for you to take notes on these because I have a couple of follow-up questions for you at the end. But if you're out of whack, that's okay. Just come back to it when you get home. Number 1, you are allowed to experience your emotions. You're not bad for experiencing them. You're not wrong for experiencing them. You are not weak for experiencing them. They're a natural part of your humanity. And you can influence your emotions with positive self-talk and reframing. It doesn't make you bad for experiencing them. Number 2, you can express your feelings to others without feeling obligated, guilty, or ashamed. You are responsible for choosing when and how to share your feelings, and you're not responsible for the reactions of the person you're sharing them with. Number 3, you can choose to say yes. You can choose to say no. You can choose to say I can't. You can choose to say I don't know, and you can choose to say not yet. You can do all of these things without guilt, without shame, and without anxiety. You are responsible for the consequences that come with the choice of saying yes, no, I can't, I don't know, or not yet. Number 4, you decide how to meet others' expectations. And if you choose not to meet them, you don't have to have guilt around that, unless you made a prior commitment. You also don't have to justify your choices to other people. Number 5, you get to choose your friends. You get to choose how often you spend time with them. This goes for family outside of your nuclear family as well. And you also don't have to justify that. Number 6, you are going to make your own mistakes and you need to take responsibility from them, and the best thing to do is learn. Number 7, choose when and how to tell others that their actions are impacting you. That one's hard. Number 8, manage and maintain your own self-respect rather than depending on the self-respect of people, the respect of people around you. That one is hard for most of us. Other people's opinions drastically impact us, although one of my favorite quotes is, "You care about other people's opinions? Have you met other people?" We're all a little crazy, you know? Number 9, you can decide to seek help in any situation without shame, anxiety, or guilt. You can decide to decline help in any situation without shame, anxiety, or guilt, and you can choose to accept it. So seek it, accept it, decline it. It's your choice. And number 10, you are a worthy and dignified human being. Your self-concept needs to be equal to the value of every other human around you. No more and no less. Be aware of that shame trap, and the definition of shame that you are going to trap yourself in sometimes is that the statement, I am fundamentally different from other people in a negative or inferior way. And so a lot of us experience pretty intense envy. It's actually not jealousy, it's envy around what other people have or what other people do, or around their success or around their beauty or around their money, all of those things. And you have to bring that back to you being a dignified human being. So we're gonna jump into some examples and some stories around this, and I think you'll really enjoy hearing some of these.
And I'm not going to cover stories for each and every one. Some of them are very easily, diagnosed on your own. The first one I think is really important. You're allowed to experience your own emotions. So if you've ever taken a personality test, you will know that sometimes one of the categories is being more of a person who is a thinker and more of a person who is a feeler. Now that doesn't mean not everybody thinks and feels. It's more about what you do first. I tend to be a thinker. I jump into business mode during crisis as opposed to feeling mode. When my mother died, I didn't feel anything for 2 weeks. I didn't. So.
And I tend to assess where am I right now?
Yeah.
So a question you can ask yourself is, am I a thinking person who feels, or am I a feeling person who thinks?
I do want to point out, though, in this, as much as I want you to embrace and recognize and acknowledge your emotions in a situation, I also want you to know that Jesus was a cognitive therapist. He really wanted you to control how you thought about things, and he knew that that would change the way you feel about things. There's a lot of verses in scripture about that. And so even if you're a feeler, I still want you to be able to evaluate your feelings, and if they're driving you in a direction that's going to be unproductive, and if you're putting too much weight in how you feel, the Bible says you shall know the truth and the truth will set you free. And that's a really important verse as far as the gospel goes, meaning Jesus died for your sins and that's how you are free from your sin because he rose from the dead. But it also encompasses, I think, a lot of lies that we've been taught as we've grown up, and you're allowed to question those things and come to an understanding of truth, and that helps you be set free from some of the emotions that are driving you in the wrong direction. So that's the distinction I wanted to make there. I really want you to understand that I want you to honor the emotions, but not necessarily act upon them or believe that they're always accurate. That's really the important thing of number one.
I have a story about this. We were driving home from dance yesterday or the day before, and Carly she said, "Mom, I really cried a lot today, throughout the recital that she was announcing that she was leaving the studio." And I said, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense. This is a big deal." And she goes, "Really?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, honey, it's..." And I went back to this personal bill of rights, and I said, "You're always allowed to experience your emotions." And she goes, "Well, I spent the whole last year thinking that I couldn't."
Oh.
And I was like, "What?" And then this is just an example of how we mess up in motherhood all the time without even meaning to, right? And so I said, "Well, tell me more." And she said, "Well, last year during recital, I had just found out that I didn't get elected to the student board. And you told me to suck it up." And I was like, the way she interpreted that, I'm thinking, I don't want your mascara to run. I don't want this to ruin, right? I don't want this to ruin your recital. You need to compartmentalize. That's what I meant. It's now is not the time actually to feel this emotion. It wasn't, you're not allowed to experience it. It was this is not the time. And I literally ruined her last year, she said. Isn't that horrible?
Well, no.
Anyway, proceed.
It's not horrible because children are resilient, and at least she told her, which is why the truth has to be said.
But I'm like an emotional expert, and if I screw up, there's just no hope. There's no hope.
Remember, ladies, I made so many mistakes in my parenting, so many mistakes, and I make mistakes still in all kinds of different ways with the grandkids and every other area of my life. So, which is one of the reasons that the personal bill of rights is that you're allowed to make mistakes, and then you need to own them, and if you can, learn from them and grow, and also give yourself grace in them. I think about sometimes mistakes that I've made, and I think I didn't have all the information, and that's one of the reasons that I made that mistake. If I knew then what I know now, I probably would have not behaved or responded the way that I did. So I think, I don't remember which one is you're allowed to make your own mistakes. That's number 6. I jumped there. But I think it's really important to be okay, and then you hear all these famous people like Michael Jordan who got kicked off his freshman basketball team and whatever. Sometimes the mistakes are the things that propel us to become something that we otherwise maybe wouldn't have. And I've seen that. I've seen people who just always have success that never not have success be really arrogant and not good in situations where empathy is needed. And so you've got to remember that those are all the building blocks to helping us become the most gracious, empathetic, humble people that we can become. And that's a really good thing. So I love number 3. You can say yes, you can say no, you can say I can't, I don't know, and you can say wait. I remember my sister-in-law wanting to know why I had made a decision regarding her when she was really little, 3, 4, 5. I don't even remember what the decision was. And I remember her wanting me to explain why I made that decision, so I did. And what she did with that information was she discounted. She took the whole list of whatever I had just said and discounted them because she wanted me to do it this other way. And she's older than I am, and she had older kids. And I remember learning from that experience, okay, so the next time I make a decision that has anything to do with my sister-in-law, I need to just say because that's the decision I made and not try to explain it because she was going to explain it away. And that's
sounds
just,
like my mother-in-law.
that's, well, yeah, there. It's just like I'm allowed to make that decision. It's my child, because at the time I think it was something that had to do with her taking my child somewhere, and I was not comfortable with that. So anyway, I just think that's why it's really important for you to be able to, just say the thing that you want to say, the yes or the no or the whatever. I mean, the exception to that would be like with your husband. I think you have to get to the end of that conversation if you're trying to make a stand or if you're trying to make a decision that makes him uncomfortable, because it does affect the whole family. As a husband-wife team, you're one. I mean, yes, you're two people as well, but you're trying to function in the world going on the same street. And so that would be the time where I would say you do need to really explain yourself. But almost everybody else, maybe you do with your older children. I think she has to explain herself with Carly because she's a teenager now, and maybe Luke too, he's 12. So that's what I mean when I say you can say yes, you can say no, and you don't have to necessarily unpack it for somebody, especially if you've had experience with them and they're going to minimize or debate it with you, especially if it's not something you want to debate. It's just okay to say, you know what, I can't really explain to you why, but that's the conclusion I came to. So I think that's really important. You can decide how to meet other people's expectations, and if you choose not to meet them, you don't have experience guilt about that unless you're going against a commitment that you've made prior. I think expectations can be a trap, and I do think that you have to work really hard to decide. Let's say, okay, I'll give you an example that's kind of silly. My mother-in-law is an incredible cook, and she would do the holidays all her growing up years. She did all the food. I am not an incredible cook. I get by, but everybody in my family brings something to these meals that we have, these family meals, and they're lovely meals, and they're very gracious about bringing stuff. They never complain about it. They don't have the expectation that I'm supposed to do it all. But I think earlier in my life, I did have the expectation that I was supposed to do it all because that's the way my mother-in-law did it. And that's the kind of expectation I'm talking about. Like, no, I can't be her. And there are other times where my husband might have made some kind of a, verbalization about, well, my mother would have. And I remember having to really make that distinction. I'm not your mother, and nor can I ever be. I mean, there's ways that we're similar, but there's just a lot of ways that we're different. And so there was some education for him in like, oh, I can't expect my wife to be exactly the way. And same with my daughters and daughter-in-law. I can't expect them to take on something that I took on just because I took it on. That doesn't mean that they have to take it on. So there's really that need to get your expectations in line with how you're made and who you are and what your reality is.
For yourself and for others.
Yeah.
Two things on that. One is that Dad says that expectations are premeditated resentments.
Interesting.
And so Brian and I talk a lot about that. But number two is that you put on here in the Personal Bill of Rights that we are responsible for our choice to say yes or no, or I can't, or right. I don't know, or not yet, right. and the consequences that come with that. And that's oftentimes what we don't want to face. And so we negate the Personal Bill of Rights because we don't want to face the consequences of them. And, when Brian and I were walking a tragedy, there were many people that I didn't want to share what was going on. Yeah. And I did lose friendship through that because there were people who were so offended that they thought they were in my inner circle, and then I wouldn't be honest with them. And so they felt like because I wasn't being honest, I was like lying. And then we weren't in the inner circle together, and they left. They abandoned me. But I had to deal with that consequence because I was a stick in the mud of not yet.
And you made a choice. That was a choice you made.
But I did have to deal with those consequences, and that was, some of those friendships were really hard to lose.
Yeah, sure. So number 8 deals with this idea of managing your own self-respect rather than letting other people define what about you is respectable. And this is a little bit similar to what I was just talking about with my mother-in-law. People's opinions, there's only certain people whose opinions really should matter.
Choose 5.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And then the rest of the people, like, that's the weird thing to me about the whole online world. All these people share their opinions. Hey, they don't have all the information. I mean, it just always blows my mind when someone shouts out a really strong opinion about something, and I'm quite sure that they don't even know what they're talking about. Or, you know, they're just bent to be on the negative side, and so they always have to share something negative. Or they make assumptions. I mean, it's just, so all of that stuff is so irrelevant, and we can get so bogged down in it, and we can feel so sad that somebody, Trisha has shared with me with her Insta page, which I think is how a lot of you met Trisha, that someone will make some kind of a comment that's a huge assumption about something she's posted, and she didn't say that. And they just, because of their own worldview or their own filter, they jump to that conclusion. So I think it's really important that we filter that stuff out as much as we can. It's just not productive at all. It's just makes you stuck.
I do see, Lynn, there are 5 of you who, when I'm trying to make a decision or when I'm trying to filter through negative online comments, there are 5 that I lean on for, do you approve of this message? Or did you think that I was out of line here? And typically the 5 of you agree because you know me to my core, and you've experienced my calling, in life with me, and so you can filter it through the appropriate measures versus somebody else. They don't know those things. So that's kind of how I decide whether or not something was out of line or not. I kind of check in with the 5 of you. What do you think about this? And see what you say.
That's very good. That's a great strategy. The last one I want to talk about is that you are a worthy, dignified human being. I think that a lot of us are shame-based, and we talked in other classes about if you're shame-based or anger-based or whatever. Shame-basedness is really debilitating because we really do believe that we're inferior to the next person. And I grew up shame-based, not knowing. I mean, I could not have put a name to that. And you would not have really known that about me because I'm very confident in the areas in which I'm confident. I was very successful in certain areas. Like I was a national level swimmer, and so I was a superior athlete. I could, do the presidential fitness test pretty easily. It wasn't hard because I have this incredible upper body strength from being a butterflyer. So you would never have known that I really deep down inside felt inferior in a lot of these other areas. And I love the idea that the Bible tells us that we're children of the King if we're Christians, and that we're absolutely on par with our value as a human being. God loves us, and so that's enough. That's what gives us value, and we have to rest in that value. Now that doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that we don't need to grow. It doesn't mean that we don't need to sometimes learn something or strive in whatever way. But it's just the baseline. It's the foundation that I really want to challenge those of you who experience being shame-based to embrace and sit in comfortably. That's the thing that I think is so important about knowing that you are every bit equal to and the same as every other human being. And from that, you can still be, helpful or kind or whatever, but it's not because you're trying to make up for your inferiority. it's because you already know that that's who you are and that's how you are.
And those of us who struggle with pride go the other way. What's funny is that when you say, you probably didn't want your kids to ever feel inferior. And so you probably overcompensated. And I almost went the other way and often felt superior over others. Like that parable of the prodigal son and the brother being jealous of the party that he gets thrown. And the brother's like, I've been here and I'm the good one. I very much felt that for many, many years of my life. I did feel like I was better than other people. And was judgmental as a result.
Well, I'm glad you've been humble. That's really important.
She's glad. She's really glad I've been humbled.
We'll see you next week for the next